The theory that we might be living in a simulation is known as the simulation hypothesis, and it's most famously associated with philosopher Nick Bostrom. Here are the key points of the theory and the arguments that support it. 1. The simulation argument. Bostrom's simulation argument is based on a trilemma, which suggests that one of the following three propositions must be true. 1.1. The human species will go extinct before reaching a post-human stage. This means that humanity won't advance to a level where it can create highly advanced simulations of reality. 1.2. A post-human civilization would not be interested in running simulations. Even if we do reach a point where we have the technology to create simulations of conscious beings, advanced civilizations might have no interest in doing so, or they might not consider it ethical. 1.3. We are likely living in a simulation if a sufficiently advanced civilization does reach a post-human stage and is interested in running simulations, then they might run many simulations, which would vastly outnumber the number of real non-simulated humans. Statistically, it's likely that we are living in one of those simulations. 2. Technological advancement. The idea that we could one day have the computational power to simulate consciousness is grounded in our rapid technological progress. Some key arguments for the feasibility of this idea include 2.1. Exponential growth in computing power. As seen with Moore's law, computing power doubles roughly every 2 years. This trend, if it continues, could enable us to simulate vast, complex worlds in the future. 2.2. Virtual reality and AI progress. Current advances in virtual reality, machine learning, and AI suggest that we could eventually create fully immersive, highly detailed simulations that could be indistinguishable from reality. 3. Mathematical nature of reality. The idea that reality is governed by mathematical laws and constants is often used as evidence for the simulation hypothesis. 3.1. Digital nature of reality. The universe, at its most fundamental level, can be described mathematically, whether it's the laws of physics or the digital structure of quantum mechanics. Some proponents argue that this digital quality suggests the universe might be a simulation running on a computational substrate. 3.2. Quantum mechanics and the observer effect. Quantum phenomena, such as particles existing in superposition, or the observer effect, where the act of observation collapses quantum states, are sometimes seen as analogous to computational processes, or the way simulations might work, where only the necessary data is rendered based on the observer's interactions. 4. Anthropic reasoning. The anthropic principle suggests that the universe seems to be fine-tuned for the existence of life. This could be interpreted as an argument for simulation because 4.1. Fine-tuning of constants. The fundamental constants of the universe, such as the force of gravity, the charge of an electron, etc., appear to be precisely calibrated to allow life. Some theorists argue that this could be evidence of a designed or simulated environment, much like how a video game environment is designed with certain conditions for its inhabitants to exist. 4.2. Probability of being simulated. If advanced civilizations are capable of running many simulations, then the likelihood that we are living in a simulation rather than base reality becomes high. This is a probabilistic argument. If there are far more simulated realities than actual ones, we are statistically more likely to be in a simulation. 5. The problem of indistinguishability. One of the core aspects of the simulation hypothesis is the idea that if we were living in a simulation, we would have no way of distinguishing it from what we perceive as real reality. 5.1. Evidence from computers. Just as we can simulate virtual worlds with increasing complexity, it's conceivable that future simulations could be so advanced that the inhabitants wouldn't be able to tell they're in a simulation, much like how characters in video games or simulations can't detect their simulated nature. 5.2. The simulation argument in philosophy. The philosopher Hilary Putnam's brains in a vat. Thought experiment suggests that it is impossible for us to know whether our experiences are real or simulated, because we cannot step outside of our own experience to observe it objectively. This philosophical argument aligns with the simulation hypothesis. 6. Objections and counterarguments. Despite these points, The simulation hypothesis faces several objections. 6.1. Lack of empirical evidence. One of the main criticisms is the absence of direct evidence that we live in a simulation. The hypothesis is difficult to test or falsify with current technology. 6.2. Ethical considerations. The question of whether an advanced civilization would be ethically willing to simulate conscious beings is contentious. Some argue that it would be morally questionable to create simulated beings that experience suffering. 6.3. The complexity of simulations. Some critics argue that the computational resources required to simulate an entire universe with conscious beings might be far beyond even a post-human civilization's capabilities, especially if they have to simulate the entire history of the universe and all its interactions. In short, the simulation hypothesis suggests that, given certain assumptions about future technology and the nature of reality, it's statistically more likely that we're living in a simulation than in a base reality. However, it remains a highly speculative and debated idea with many unanswered questions and no definitive proof either way.